Good morning. We're here with Kate McQueen, who is from our Bethesda office and is the Queen of Guardianships. I've given her that label. Thanks for being here this morning to talk to our Breakfast Bar series about guardianships. And one of the things I want to sort of go back to that you mentioned briefly was the capability to have, it sounded like a limited guardianship for a specific transaction or a surrogate decision maker. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. There are two separate things. They are two things that can help you avoid a guardianship if you think you might need one and there's not a power of attorney or a medical directive in place. So a specific transaction is possible for a limited task that you need to accomplish, a limited financial task you need to accomplish. So for instance, if you need to liquidate a life insurance policy, you can go into court and get approval just for that and avoid a full guardianship of the property, which avoids reporting requirements and other things that can be cumbersome and the ongoing supervision of the court.
Do you still require the physician's certificates to be able to do that?
You do, because the court has to find that this is a case that is appropriate for guardianship but could be avoided. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I typically submit 2 certificates.
And when you're talking about a particular transaction, is there the capability to get that order fairly quickly?
Yes. Different counties handle it differently. So some counties still require the appointment of an attorney for the person who is alleged to need help with a transaction. So that can make the process a little longer, but it's definitely a shorter process than a full guardianship.
And then you also mentioned a surrogate decision maker, I think was the terminology that you used. Uh-huh. So can you tell me a little more about what that is?
Sure. Maryland allows for surrogate health decision making under certain circumstances. So for instance, if somebody's in the hospital or unable to make a medical decision and a decision needs to be made, there is a law, it's in the Maryland Code, that allows for categories of persons to make decisions for somebody else if there are 2 doctors who say that the patient is not able to make that decision. Maybe they're in a coma, maybe they are in surgery and the decision has to be made. There's a surrogate decision-making statute that allows you to potentially avoid guardianship of the person.
So it sounds like that's a sort of a shorter duration type of authority rather than the full guardianship?
Yes.
Would that be correct?
Not, you don't go through the court typically. It's just a process where you're in the hospital and the statute just gives someone in a certain category of people, like a spouse or a family member or an adult child, somebody like that, the authority to make a certain type of medical decision for a person.
So then that's really occurring between that person and the healthcare providers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The doctors
not involved in that.
Okay. And the other thing that you talked about, which I think is different in various aspects of the law, but when you are appointed to represent the, I guess it's alleged disabled person would be the terminology, and you deem that it really is appropriate for this person to have a guardian because they're not capable based on your investigation to handle their matters. But that person says to you, no, Ms. McQueen, I don't want a guardian appointed to me. Then it is your obligation to advocate for no guardian.
That's true.
Is that correct?
Uh-huh.
So how do you handle then the presentation of evidence to a court when your investigation tells you there really is a need for a guardian and you've got an individual saying, I don't want one?
So in Maryland, there is a separate role that allows for an investigator. So in Maryland, the attorney that's appointed for the alleged disabled person, that's absolutely the right term, their role is to advocate for that person just like any client. So you're to deal with that person as if they are not incapacitated. You're to meet with them, explain the guardianship process, and if they tell you no, you go into court at the guardianship trial and you dispute it. You would advocate for that person just like you would any normal client. The person has a right to a jury trial and guardianship of the person. If your client wants to take the stand, I mean, you talk to them about whether that's good for their case or not.
Right.
But you advocate for them, and the court can appoint someone else to act as investigator and give a report to the court about what their findings are. And so in Maryland, really, you may think in the back of your mind, geez, this person really needs a guardian. For example, if somebody has clearly been the subject of a scam or financial exploitation, but that's for the petitioner to prove and for the investigator to tell the court and the court to decide. Your role as court-appointed attorney for that person is to advocate for that person.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us
Of
this
course.
morning
My pleasure.
and for sharing some of what we all need to know about situations that we may all find ourselves in at some point in time.
Thanks for having me.
So thank you so much.